Danvers, and welcome to the Select Board hearing of January 7th, 2025. And can we have the Pledge of Allegiance, Maureen?
Yes, please. Please join me. I pledge allegiance of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
This date.
Okay. All right, please come to order. Thank you. Can we have an approval of the minutes of December 17th?
Approve of the minutes of December 17, 2024.
Before we do that, Mr. DeJoco is joining us from overseas, so tonight all votes will be taken by roll call. Welcome, Dee. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I hear you well. We're good. Now, can we have approval of the minutes for December 17th?
Approve of the minutes of December 17, 2024, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you.
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
Aye.
The clerk will
Joko.
call the roll.
For the motion on the minutes. Joko,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Bean,
Yes.
Mills. Thank you.
All right, now we'll get into it. Now, for new public business, anyone has any comments? For 2 minutes, you're allowed. Anyone interested? Bill in the back.
Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. I mentioned at a prior meeting about the town acknowledging the stewards of the land that we now occupy. I'll give you a copy of this. When the Human Rights and Inclusion have their meetings, they start with that kind of acknowledgement. I think it'd be nice if the town did more than just a piece of paper or some kind of a monument plaque, something appropriate to recognize the people who lived here before we took over the land, so to speak.
That sounds appropriate, Bill. Thank you.
Here's a copy.
Okay, good, thanks. Anyone else, new public business? Welcome.
Hi, I'm Ellen Graham. I'm in Precinct 4. I've sent all of you emails. I think you've received them. Dan and I have talked about it. I think the most efficient thing for me to reiterate it is to read it out loud because I really think I feel strongly about it. So I wanted to express my concern over the bullying in our community. I'm not talking about the children. It's actually the adults that have been most concerning. There is a Danvers Facebook page that is constant racist, homophobic, and transphobic bullying, and also targeting, or what was called the hit list, of resident volunteers. I also spent 5 hours holding signs at the polls for November election, something I've been doing for 25 years, and I've never seen such a despicable display of racist, homophobic, transphobic bullying with megaphones. They had actual megaphones. I also watched as those so-called adults literally whispered in the ears of middle school boys, telling them ways to try to taunt other adults. I understand and believe in free speech. The reality is it can be ugly. I think as a community that has no room for hate, we must find a way to be kinder and gentler community. I know we are limited in controlling adults and their behaviors. We must try to model, to the best of our ability, to be inclusive and tolerant of all people. That being said, we must also call out the bullies. I believe the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee, who have worked with Jasmine to educate us on all these important subjects, be closely involved in helping to choose the next town manager. These are the experts in our community on the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I believe our town manager should be well-versed in working to building more tolerance in our community. I know I've talked to Dan, and I understand Jasmine no longer works for the town. I think we need to fill that position as soon as possible. I also understand we're waiting for the town manager until we fill some of those positions. But I think it's really important for our town manager to address a very difficult subject, and I think someone from that committee would help that process. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and if I may, I appreciate you standing up and speaking out. I've spoken to a number of our leaders in the community and asked them why they're not speaking out, why they're not speaking up. So thank you for doing it.
I think it's important for all of us. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen.
Anyone else do public business? Okay. We'll go to number 3. The board will consider the application by Joyce Bujuri, event manager, St. Mary's School, 14 Otis Street, for a one-day wine and malt license on Friday, January 10th, 2025, 6 to 9 p.m. for music bingo to be held in the gym. Is Joyce here?
Here I am.
Welcome.
Hi.
Introduce yourself for the folks at home.
I'm Joyce Bucari. I'm the administrative assistant at St. Mary's of the Annunciation on Otis Street, which is a pre-K through grade 8 school. So we have a very successful, from when my kids were there, candy bar bingo for kids. And this is the second time we're coming before you to request a one-day liquor license. The last one, we had 86 attendees, so it's not a huge crowd.
The application in order?
Yes, it is.
Madam Clerk? Okay, questions, Maureen?
No questions?
Mike?
No questions, thank you.
David?
Thank you, no.
Okay, Dee at home in Europe, any questions?
No questions, no thanks.
Thank you. What's the will of the board?
Move to approve as applied.
Second?
Okay, take the roll call, please.
Joko,
Yes,
Bernard,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Bean,
Yes.
Hills.
Yes.
Yep, 5-0.
Joyce, thanks for coming out this cold night. Good luck. Number 4, a public hearing will be held on the application of a construction company, improvement company, Nancy McCann, attorney, representing to occupy the public way in front of 17 Elm Street during the construction of a new mixed-use commercial and residential building, specific timeline to be determined based on presentation. Welcome, Nancy, and please introduce your guest there.
Thank you very much. I'm Nancy McCann. I'm an attorney here in Danvers, and with me tonight is Rodrigo Gamirez.
Ramirez, thank you.
Gamirez, from the president of Gamirez Constructions and Improvements, Inc. And we have filed an application to occupy the public way, including the sidewalk adjacent to the property at 17 Elm Street, a portion of which is along Elm Street and Page Street, during the reconstruction of a mixed-use project at 17 Elm Street. That project has been fully permitted through the planning board. It is a mixed-use development with commercial space on the first floor, including a restaurant and a small commercial square footage, and then 3 residential units above. We have submitted a very detailed construction management plan, as well as traffic management plan that includes each phase of the construction with plans associated with those individual phases so that the board knows exactly what's going on in each of the phases. I did summarize that, those 2 plans, this CMP and the TMP, in my letter to the board of January 2nd, and I'll just highlight a few things. The construction commencement date for Phase 1 is anticipated to be February 1st. The completion of the sidewalk occupation, which is at the end of Phase 5, is anticipated to be November 29th. So we're talking about approximately 10 months for the full construction. During the course of construction at the various times, as indicated in the plan, a 6-foot-high secure chain link fencing with scrim on top of water-filled jersey barriers will be used to isolate construction areas from pedestrian traffic along Elm Street and Page Street. Pedestrian overhead protection will be used in front of the building throughout Phase 3 when construction surpasses 8 feet in height. Sidewalk along Elm Street and Page Street in front of the construction will be temporarily closed during Phase 1 and 2, and pedestrians will be directed to use the temporary accessible sidewalk throughout Phase 2. And these are all noted on the plans for the various phases in the information that's been provided. And overhead pedestrian protection scaffolding will be removed during Phase 3 when the building facade work is completed. These two documents, the CMP and the TMP, have been reviewed by the building commissioner. They were revised to respond to his comments, and that's the final version that you have, that's been submitted to you. And I believe that's all I have to say. Rodrigo is here. He is the general contractor for this project, and he is available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start off with, what's the definition of anticipated?
Well, that is what we anticipate. However, an application for the building permit is in the process of being submitted and reviewed. I know the building inspector is in communication with our design team on some building code questions. So once the building permit is issued, the project would proceed forward. We anticipate February 1st, but there's always weather conditions that we have to be mindful of as well. So that's why I indicated, while we anticipate February 1st, and that's certainly the start date that we are headed toward and anticipate, the whole process, perhaps that's a better guideline of 10 months.
I'm just concerned because the building inspector's letter of January 2nd says that he wasn't confident in your February 1 start date. And a full review has not been completed. So it begs the question, why are you here today and not in the future when you have a firm date?
Well, I think we certainly want to start the process and get before you to make sure that we have met all of your needs in the plans that have been submitted. And then we will have that with the anticipation of the February start date. I think we still anticipate that that will be the accurate start date. But of course, the design team and the construction team is working with the building commissioner to address any questions he has. And he did raise a question of weather, and it's certainly a legitimate concern.
Yes, you may, Madam Clerk.
The building inspector is here tonight, along with Aaron Henry, if you have any specific questions.
I'm aware of that. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, we'll start with questions from Maureen.
First of all, I think the packet was put together very well. I did read through it. The two largest issues were noted are lack of the appropriate egresses and the lack of an elevator, which you did explain. And I do like the fact how it was put together with the public safety, detailed, really good about the impact of the existing construction projects was really good, and the waste, the construction waste, dumpster, that's important. We want to make sure, and the construction hours, too, are very important, too. I'm fine with this, Stan.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
I'm good.
Mike?
I thought it was really detailed and really well done, thank you. There was one thing I saw, there was an amount of $2 in there. I got about 100 jobs for you if you're free. This is going to be done for $2. No, everything looked good to me, a lot of good details, so no problem.
David?
I agree.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dee?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Manager, can we hear from the building commissioner just on his thoughts?
Sure. Tim Uden, our building commissioner, if you could join us.
Tim Hudon, building commissioner for the town of Danvers. So thank you to Nancy for putting everything together. So this was the second time that we had looked at the plans here. The first one, I had concerns about the sidewalk remaining open, especially during the excavation and foundation phase. So that was corrected in the plan that you see here tonight. Like I had mentioned in the email, my biggest concern is, at this point, the start date. So the preliminary review of the plans showed one means of egress and no elevator. So in this project, an elevator is required from the ground floor all the way up to the roof deck for the amenities to meet the code for 521 CMR, which is the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board. So in my mind, that is a fairly large redesign potentially of the building, as well as if the second egress needs to be added. So I'm not confident in a start date of approximately 3 weeks. I'm not sure even if stormwater permitting and other issues have been addressed to the other departments in the town. So even if everything was up to code in the initial permit application, 3 weeks would be close to get an approval. Given the egress and the elevator concerns, I don't see any way that this project starts on February 1st. Again, and that's not even including the weather. If we get, a decent snowstorm, anything like that, you can't pour concrete on frozen ground, anything like that. So those are concerns that we always have during the winter months. So with the two concerns together, I think, and again, depending on the design team and how they choose to handle it, if that's an appeal that goes to the state or whether it's a redesign, I think you're looking at least a couple of months.
To start,
Correct.
which,
I have no concerns with the phases, how they're lined out, the timelines in the phases, or the amount of protection that varies throughout the phases. That's all correct. That all meets Chapter 33 in the State Building Code, which is safeguards during construction. So all of those concerns were mitigated. I don't have any concerns with the time frame as a whole. I just think it's going to shift a couple of months into the future.
so I don't really see with us approving it that it helps them get their project done any sooner. Then they'll have to come back before us with a new start date and new end date. If we say February 1 to November 29th, what happens at the end when they're not done?
Correct. I mean, again, I'm less concerned about the finish date. There's certainly a lot of variables that can extend a project even without, even with a project starting as anticipated. So I would be more concerned with the proposed start date of construction and moving forward from there.
Okay. Any comments from board members?
We'll go with what the building inspector, suggests. Can we put the start date, and if they have to come back, then they come back?
I would say that would be up to you.
I
Well,
would-
we
I would say-
pick a start date
I
and they
would say,
don't
let's
start.
leave it as February 1st, and if it doesn't happen, then they come back before us. That's what I would suggest, Mr. Chairman.
This is a public hearing. Anyone in the public with any comments? Please go to the microphone, introduce yourself.
I'm Karen Nastic.
Speak into the microphone.
Karen Nastic, Loxley Road. I'm curious, is this another flat-topped roof building in town?
Yes.
I didn't get to see the design of it.
The answer is yes.
Okay, so I think all this flat-top roof is a pause for me concern. I just learned about this process late in the game, and I worked on these all pictures of Danvers from the sesquicentennial booklet, and I noticed that all the downtown has a look to it, a look that has pointed roofs from all over the southern part of the main street, looking north up to the ambulance. And I wish that, why can't we just have somebody overlooking the historical nature? And I also noticed that the new town manager's write-up on that person also doesn't mention that Danvers is a historical town. And we sort of lost that in the fact that we've built the police department to look like they're all Rebecca Nurse. And now all
Karen,
these
I
buildings.
appreciate what you're saying. What we need is a design review committee. We tried to do that a number of years ago. It didn't go anyplace. That's really where we have to go. Tonight, we're only here to talk about blocking the public sidewalk. We're not talking about the design. The elevator is the building inspector's purview. Our only question is to block the public way, or not.
So it's already given permission for the shape and style of the building.
He's already gone through the other permitting processes, but he's not done yet.
Is over Danvers Hardware also decided?
I have no idea. That's not before us right now.
Okay.
but I see somebody from planning shaking his head.
But that's all, that's planned as a purple and white striped building, so enjoy it.
Again, we need a design review committee. Anyone else in the public? Okay, motion to close the public hearing, please.
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Is there a second? Mike seconded. We take the roll, please.
Joko?
Yes, I'm okay with approving it.
We're closing the public
Anything-
hearing right now.
Oh, yes.
Bernard?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
Bean?
Yes.
Mills?
Yes.
Okay, 5-0.
All right, what's the will of the board?
Nice. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Move what?
Well, close the public hearing, we
We're
approve.
done.
Yep, and then we're going to do,
Need a specific motion about blocking the public way.
you want me to make the motion?
No, anybody can make it, but it's got to be specific to closing the public way with specific dates.
Right, so I'll make the
Range.
motion, yeah, I'll just make the motion to close the public way, and we said February 1st, right, start date, 2024, 25,
Well, the applicant says approximately.
approximately.
They're not, so it can't be specific.
Okay, then you make it, and then I'll agree to it.
I'm not making the motion. Anyone else want to take a stab? Mr. Mills, your experience in these matters?
No, I don't want to make a motion, but my thoughts are, there seems to be no prejudice to the town if the matter is approved tonight as is, with the public discussion, that weather and other conditions may delay the commencement of this. It's not going to change, another month is not going to change the location of Page Street or Elm Street or any traffic on it. So if the applicant and his attorney are willing to go along with that, realizing that the improbability perhaps of starting February 1st, then you will have to come back here. I'm in favor of accommodating the owner, who has a great investment in this. And I'm also wondering, is the addition of an elevator going to be changing anything having to do with the sidewalk or the street?
No, it will not.
And if a neighbor were to ask that you would at least consider a peaked roof rather than a flat, will you at least listen to the neighbor? You don't have to make no commitment, just that if, I always say when someone is dissatisfied with something they see, say, please and thank you, would you consider thus and so, and here are my reasons. That has nothing to do with the public streets. So why don't I just say, I have no problem with, and I will move to approve the application as presented, with the understanding that the timeline is probably going to be modified in the future.
Is that your motion, David?
Yes, Dan?
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second,
Discussion? Take the roll, please.
Joko?
Yes.
Bernard?
yes,
Bennett?
Yes.
Bean?
Yes.
Mills?
Yes.
Yep, 5-0.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure we'll see you back.
You may.
Have a good night. Number 5, a public hearing will be held on 2 applications of MAG Retail Holdings, HYD LLC, DBA, Genesis of Danvers, 24 Newbury Street, Danvers, Matthew McGovern, manager, Class 1 dealer license, and MAG Retail Holdings, HYD LLC, DBA, McGovern Hyundai of Danvers, 24 Newbury Street, Danvers, Mass. Matthew McGovern, manager, Class 1 dealer license, both at that location. Somebody here to represent MAG Retail Holdings.
I am. Thank you very much. My name is Nancy McCann. I'm an attorney on behalf of the applicant. Also with me tonight is John Kennedy and Tom DeTore from McGovern Auto Group and the applicant. Matthew McGovern was called out of town for a funeral, and unfortunately he isn't here this evening. but John Kennedy is vice president and certainly able to speak to any questions that you may have. We have submitted 2 applications for a Class 1 dealer's license to operate a dealership for McGovern Hyundai of Danvers and McGovern Genesis of Danvers at the property located at 24 Newbury Street, which is owned by Mag RE Holdings Danvers LLC. This property is a vacant property. It had been originally occupied for many years by Sun Life Outdoor Furniture. It is an existing building that is approximately 7,300 square feet. The site itself is almost 7 acres, 6.9 acres. It's a large site. And again, it has an existing vacant commercial building. The applicant is requesting the 2 Class 1 dealer's licenses, one for Genesis and one for Hyundai, to operate a dealership at this location during construction, actually, of a new dealership that has been fully approved at 6470 Andover Street. That's the site of the Canes Greenhouse. That project has been fully approved by the planning board and construction will commence. But during the interim, we're seeking the Class 1 license to allow the operation of Hyundai and Genesis at the existing vacant commercial site. It makes some good use of that site. McGovern has already gone in and started cleaning up that site. There was a lot of debris in the back. That's been removed. And so this is a good repurposing of that commercial vacant site, which we think is a good thing. And it also provides the needed interim sales location for Hyundai and Genesis. We anticipate this location to be needed for 12 to 18 months during the course of the construction of the new dealership campus. And that, again, had been fully permitted by the planning board back that site had fully been permitted. The use of 24 Newbury Street, the site that we're here for, also went through the planning board special permit process to allow a dealership to operate there, pending, of course, the Class 1 dealership license. McGovern Auto Group, Matt McGovern, has been in the automotive industry sales for many years. He operates 24 dealerships in Massachusetts, 4 in New York and 2 in New Hampshire. He has an excellent reputation in the automotive industry. This dealership will operate regular dealership type of hours, 9 to 7 Monday through Thursday, 9 to 6 Friday and Saturday, and closed on Sunday. We anticipate probably 15 to 20 employees on the site. There's ample space for the inventory storage. There's ample space for customer parking. And again, it's a good use in the interim for a vacant property. And we have a team here. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Dee, any questions?
I'm sorry, I may have missed it. How long are they going to be using the site for again?
12 to 18 months.
18 months. Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, David?
Sounds very sensible to me.
Mike?
Is there any intention after the 18-month to keep the property and use it for car business, or
Yes.
still be functioning?
We anticipate that after the new dealership is constructed on Andover Street, this site would go through a full permitting process for a new dealership building. That is Mr. McGovern's anticipated use
It'd have both
of the
places?
property.
It'd have 2 places?
Potentially, different brands, yeah. The
Okay.
closest McGovern dealership at this point is McGovern Land Rover in Peabody, about a mile away.
Okay, thank you.
All set?
Yes, thank you.
Maureen?
No, it makes sense. I mean, it's great. No, all set.
A question. When you were before the planning board, did they discuss dumpsters and rubbish pickup?
There certainly was a dumpster shown on the plan, so yes. Yeah.
And projected times for pickup of the rubbish?
I don't think we actually discussed that in particular.
There's a town bylaw that prohibits trash removal prior to 7 a.m.
That's correct.
I see the shaking their head, so they understand that. Okay. I won't hear it from where I live, but this morning at 5:40, I could hear it downtown all for 20 minutes, rubbish pickup. So hopefully the neighbors in that area won't hear that. Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. Anyone in the public? Sir?
I really just have Mark Arthur, 181 Pine Street. Has there been any consideration or studies done with the on-ramp right there to Route 1?
I'm sorry.
There's an on-ramp right there on Route 1. Has there been any studies about traffic and congestion and safety?
Nancy, can you answer that?
There are 2 existing curb cuts that serve this site at 24 Newbury Street, and those would not be altered or changed. An auto dealership is a very low traffic generator, as the planning board has certainly come to recognize. Purchasing an automobile is done differently now than it used to be. You don't roam the lots on Saturday afternoon with the family and do all of that sort of thing. You buy your car online and you go to the dealership once, maybe twice, and for the pickup. So it's very different, and traffic generation is very low. A traffic study was not required by the planning board, given the low volume of traffic anticipated for this particular use. I believe, as a general study, when Cumberland Farms went in to that, right at the ramp, there was certainly a traffic study done by the planning board at that time.
I was going to bring that up. When Deerskin Trading Post left and the Cumberland Farms went in there, I'm pretty sure there was a traffic study done on those ramps.
Yeah.
So I think the answer to the question is there was previously.
Yes.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mark Arthur, 181 Pine. That
I'm sorry, sir, I could not hear what you said.
Mark Arthur, 181 Pine Street.
Thank you.
That Cumberland Farms gas station is a nightmare to get in and out of. Very dangerous. It's very dangerous. Yeah, from Route 1. Just something to consider. Just asking the question.
Anyone else? Motion to close the public hearing, please.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Take the roll, please.
This is to close the public hearing. Joko?
Yes.
Bernard?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
Bean?
Yes.
Mills?
Yes.
What's the will of the board?
Move the application as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, take the roll, please.
Joko?
Yes.
Bernard?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
Bean?
Yes.
Mills?
Yes.
5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The board will vote to appoint additional members to the Danvers Town Manager Steering Committee. Members, on December 30th, Maureen and I sent out a report on the Town Manager Screening Committee, along with a copy of the committee charge. Given the responsibility of the committee, we have given serious thought to the makeup of the committee, and we are suggesting the following 2 slates of members from the community to work with Maureen and I for your consideration. These slates contain 5 names, and rather than debate individuals, we have 3 choices today. Vote to endorse slate A, vote to endorse slate B, or vote to have each of us members submit their preferred slate of 5 from those listed. Is there a motion?
Motion to accept as you presented.
Thank you. Now we need a motion. That's, you're accepting our report. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Take a roll on that piece, please.
Joko,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes?
Bean,
Yes.
Mills.
Yes.
So, board members, you've been provided with 3 options tonight. How would you like to proceed?
I move to vote to have each member submit their preferred slate from the 5 listed above.
Is there a second?
Second.
I second.
Take,
Okay, nope, I'm good.
yep. Take the roll.
Joko,
Yes.
Bennett,
No.
Bernard,
Yes.
Bean,
Yes.
Mills.
Yes.
4-1, that passes.
Okay, so now each individual member will list their 5 choices from this list of who to serve.
Is this by secret ballot, Dan, or public?
Well, you know, I thought about doing not secret, just do it in writing. We'd announce the winners afterwards. Or for transparency's sake, each member can list their 5 choices. Well, it's up to the board.
I say transparency is good.
It is.
I'll start, if you want, with submitting.
Is everybody comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to take from all 5 of us a name. You have the list. You keep track, please.
Okay.
Okay, Maureen is first.
I'm going to go with Arthur Skamis. I can go down my list, or just?
All 5.
Okay. I'm going to go with Arthur Skamis, Walter Teipert, Corinne Doherty, Kevin Burrich, and Mark Jones.
Thank you. D?
Thank you. I'll go with Stephen Grisdorf, Eric Mitchell, Corinne Doherty, Arthur Scammers, I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing that name, and Wally Typer.
Okay, David?
Arthur Scammers, Walter Typett, Corinne Doherty, Eric Mitchell, and Stephen Greistoff. Is it 5 or 6, Dan?
5.
I think that's 5.
Yeah. Michael?
Arthur Skamis, Walter Teipert, Corinne Doherty, Kevin Berrick, and Mark Jones.
Arthur Skamis, Eric Mitchell, Corinne Doherty, Stephen Gresdorf, and Wally Typert. Yeah. Yep,
5 for Wally,
yep,
5 for Corinne,
yep,
and then I have 3 for Eric Mitchell,
yep.
and 3 for Stephen.
Thank you. So the tally is 5 votes for Arthur Skamis, 5 votes for Walter Typett, 3 votes for Corinne Doherty, 3 votes for Eric Mitchell, 3 votes for Stephen Grisdorf,
That was 5 for Corinne.
and 5 for Corinne.
Corinne, yep.
Okay. Thank you all. That's good. Okay, I look forward to working with everybody on that committee. I appreciate all that expressed interest in serving on this committee.
Are you taking a vote on that?
Yeah, we're going to take a,
You're going to,
yeah, we'll have to,
Vote to
we have the
appoint?
5, yeah, so now we just need a vote to appoint them. Somebody make a motion to appoint the 5 as elected?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Take the roll, please.
Can we have discussion on that,
Discussion,
Dan?
yeah.
What do you want to discuss?
I want to discuss the request that was brought forward by Ellen Graham for a member from the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee to be included in this committee. So if the vote is to close the nominations and appoint, or have you and Maureen appoint these 5 persons, that's one thing. If it is possibly open-ended for the purpose of having someone from HRIC, that is my goal, that there be a member from HRIC on the search committee.
Thank you, David. And working with the recruitment advisor is very strongly suggested we have 5 members, maybe 7, no more. And Maureen and I both agreed with that. Us 2 makes 7 now. To go to 8 means we got to go to 9.
Oh.
Okay, so, and then we could get somebody from zoning, we could get somebody from planning. I mean, there's all kinds of boards that we could ask people to serve. I think we focused in on people, FinCom, zoning, 2 selectmen. Now we have 3 FinCom members. That wasn't my goal, but that's what happened. I appreciate Ellen and I did discuss it. And I appreciate the sentiments, but I think in the purpose of being expeditious with getting the interviews, these are the folks that will do the job.
My vote, my nomination, my motion then is unconditional, so it's for the approval of the slate as announced.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Take the roll, please.
Joko,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Bean,
Yes.
Mills.
Yes.
5-0.
Good. Thank you again for all that volunteered. Hopefully, towards the end of the month, we'll be getting resumes in. We can start in February doing the interviews in private and look forward to bringing some candidates to this full board sometime in March. But thank you. Okay. The board will discuss the merits of maintaining 2 seats on the Beverly Airport Commission. Mr. Town Manager, can I ask you to give us a little history for the public? I think this is the 3rd or 4th time I've been involved in this conversation of whether to have 2 members from the town represent us on the commission or take the $6,000 or $7,000 that we would get in taxes. I think we get this conversation every 3 or 4 or 5 years when we get a new board. That's the question that comes up. Anything you want to add?
No, I think that my limited exposure to it is that is the choice. We waive the pilot each year for around $6,700. It's set by statute, so again, pursuant to potential legislation in the future to change that calculation, that is the amount we would get, and we waive that in exchange for 2 representatives on the Airport Commission.
All right, I'll open up for conversation, discussion. Maureen?
Well, I think about this, and when we have 2 representatives, they get outvoted anyways, right? So, I mean, it's nice to have a representative, but if we have Joan Lovely and Sally Kearns trying to be there, I mean, we want the representative, but I don't think it really goes anywhere. I was impressed with them coming before us last time, trying to be transparent. We do have a lot of concerns for the residents. We want to make sure, but I don't know, I'd kind of vote to take the tax money at this point. But anybody can always go to those meetings, so that's what I would do. I'd vote to take the $6,700.
D?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been torn about this for some time, and I will kind of agree with Maureen, but I would also say that that would also require us as a board to be more attentive, not that we were not, but more, I'm looking for the right word, maybe aggressive into making inquiries and having meetings like the one we had last time. but I will go with getting the tax money.
David?
Thank you.
Oops, excuse me. Was Dee finished? Dan, I wonder if it's possible for us to hear from Aaron, who was one of our representatives to that board, as to what he thinks the value is of having a Danvers person on that board. And I note that Dr. Casawan, was that your uncle who did my teeth? And you, Mr. or Doctor? Mr. Casawan, who is currently one of the town's representatives to the board. If you're willing to give us your frank opinion, does it make any difference for us to be there? And in the background, if I may say, I heard Gardner Trask, I think it was at our last meeting or very recently, give an explanation of the 3-part levels of government that absolutely destroy the opportunity of this board to do anything positive and productive with respect to that enormous nuisance that plagues our town. Gardner explained it very well. We have very, very limited ability to control. The state, through 2 of its agencies and through the legislature, has some ability to alleviate but it's never going to happen, because anything that our legislators want to do with respect to Beverly Airport would be crushed over by the lobbying power of all of those massive airplane companies, Delta, American, and all of them, who control the decisions with respect to airports. And then finally, the even suggestion that our one Congress member, Keith Moulton, could do anything with the FAA in view of the power of the airline industry in this nation to change rules. I thought Gardner said it brilliantly, and I understand that nobody wants to hear what he says, and I am an old lawyer, as you've heard, and unfortunately I always go by the rules and say, well, what is the rule? And that is the rule that we haven't got a prayer. Now, that being said, talking is always helpful. Please and thank you is always helpful in some situations. So I wonder if Mr. Casawan and Aaron would be able to plug in on this. Should we remain, or should we just...
David, can I take back control of the meeting?
Oh, that's enough, Dan, all right. Did I say enough?
No, you did, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
But I want to know if Mike wants to speak before we ask Aaron or Bill to speak.
Oh, sorry, Mike.
No, you were doing good. I didn't want to interrupt. I think we need our own 5-person action committee. Forget the 2 seats. We don't seem to gain any ground. We could have our own traction. People that are willing to work in, they're going to have to search out every avenue to get what we need and possibly get some more tax money out of it. The $6,000+ is $6,000. You can blow that in a tire for an excavator. So I don't know that the
It's
money
half a roof.
What's that?
It's half a roof.
Yeah, right. So I just think we need our own town committee that's focused solely on that, with people that are willing to do the work and will dig in, and I think we'd have more power.
Interesting concept. Aaron, would you care to weigh in or not? I think you know the question.
I know the question. Good evening, Board. Aaron Henry, the town's Director of Land Use and Community Services and a commissioner at the airport for the last 6.5 years. I think it's something I've struggled with as a representative. I know what the community wants you to do as their representative on the board, but you also take an oath of office for, in the Beverly City Clerks about it's similar to being a water or sewer commissioner. You have a fiduciary responsibility to run the enterprise fund appropriately, and it's a feels like an inherent conflict when I know what the residents want to be done, but you're kind of hamstrung by such responsibilities. If it's the desire of the community that the airport is not a land use that we wish to support because we wish it weren't there. It does seem difficult to then put residents on that commission and expect them to try to unwind it or undo it, or it's not its nature. When you're on the commission, that's not the nature of the commission. So I think if this board wants to go a different way, as Mr. Bean articulates, you might be able to do more advocacy outside of that process, then certainly it's something this community has not tried since the early 90s when this arrangement was first made. That said, I would say that I think the current membership of the Beverly Airport Commission I know we have not done enough to satisfy all, but I think the last 12 to 18 months, there's been a great deal of progress made on understanding the issues and the impacts that affect the Danvers side of the airport in particular. And I think that progress is real and has made a difference. But again, if it's the desire of the board to go in a different direction and have a stronger advocacy around limiting that, it's difficult to, I think it would be difficult to do that and be on the commission. But I don't know if we want to hear from Mr. Castle, and I know he's been at the airport
If
for a
he's
very long
willing
time.
to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Good evening. I'm William Cossawan, 7 Fairview Street, Danvers. I am one of the 2 airport commissioners elected by the town of Danvers. I've been in that position for approximately 18 months. Previous to that, I've acted as an envoy to the Beverly Commission since the year 2000. I take my position very seriously. I also take the concept of representation very seriously. Attorney Mills, I agree with your observation. We are badly outnumbered. But we're faced with a situation of a balance. $6,000, what is that? That's a week's vacation versus representation. That's America. Representation is America. In fact, I'm going to go off on a slightly different here. We have 2 representatives on a board of 9 commissioners there. We're not getting dealt a good hand of cards. We are politically undermined. Beverly Airport is occupied probably about a little over 50% by Beverly and around 45% in Danvers. The board should consist of 4 representatives from Danvers, 5 representatives from Beverly, with a supermajority required for any and all decisions, period. Okay. I'll give a couple examples of where I'm coming from. I go to meetings every month, and I see my constituents, who I take very seriously. I've heard from pretty much all of them. They go there every month, they make their comments and complaints, whatever, and they are acknowledged, but to the best of my knowledge, they have not been responded to. And I really have a problem with that. Last Friday, we had a meeting regarding an appeal on an environmental issue. To be honest, I've lost the particulars of it, but it had gotten lost in the shuffle, and we met out in the cold. And I had called Sally Kearns, Joan Lovely, even Moulton's office to come and join me. And at that meeting, I was the only representative there representing the town of Danvers. Okay, so I take the matter very seriously. I've stood out there freezing with everybody else supporting this issue. Okay, I realize that from your position, there's bigger fish to fry, so to speak, but please don't surrender that. I don't think the town of Danvers conceded the land, the Beverly Airport, to Beverly. They are right. They have ridden roughshod over us. Not the current commission. The current commission are very good people. They're very, very good people. I'm very pleased to work with them. However, previously you had an airport manager whose career aspirations took us down a lane which has become very, very controversial. We're about to enter a phase where a lot more angst is going to be sounded out. And I really think that we should not only keep the 2, but we should expand to 4. Demand a revision of the charter governing that, and we need to dig our heels in. Again, please weigh in. $6,000 versus America, representation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Bill. So Mike has an idea of a committee of 5. Bill is right. We should have 4 seats there, to be fair. I certainly think the impact of Beverly Airport on our residents require active engagement by the town to ensure appropriate mitigation or an alternative approach. To just give up the 2 seats for $6,000 makes no sense to me at all. I think we need to give this more thought. We're not taking a vote tonight. I just wanted to have a conversation. 2 of the members are willing to give up the 2 seats, and I'll ask you to think more about that. Can we advocate for 4 seats, to get 4 seats on that?
Well, is there a process to do
Can we
that?
check?
I mean, I'm sure we could advocate through town council, but again, that's, their charter is set. Again, I refer to Aaron, who's been a commissioner for 6 years, but I assume we have no legal standing to make that request.
It would be, my understanding of the deal that we operate under now is that was a handshake agreement between the Board of Selectmen in the early 90s with then Mayor Scanlon, and that deal has basically been just a handshake since.
If I can offer a comment, any vote we take is not beholden on future boards. That handshake
Oh,
But-
understood.
was then, this is now.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, just to Aaron's point, I think the handshake is that at any point we could have 0 seats if the city of Beverly chose, correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
If they chose?
Yes.
It is their commission, they own the property, and I know Mr. Castle saying, like, you know,
50,
the
45.
Beverly Airport bought land in Danvers, you know, decades ago. They're a property owner that owned in Danvers, and again, that representation question was raised in the 90s, and that was a political solution. I don't believe it's in their charter. I've not seen any documentation out of the city of Beverly that says there's 2 seats given to Danvers, or it's just their law says that that's a 9-member commission, and they can appoint whomever they wish to those 9 seats, and they've afforded the town of Danvers 2 of those seats. If we wanted to talk about additional representation, I think that would be in approaching Mayor Cahill's office and see what the temperature is.
Just a letter?
Are there 9 seats filled now?
I think we're at 7 right now, if I'm not mistaken. I think there are 2 vacancies. Maybe 8? Yeah, maybe 8. Yeah, I apologize.
Okay, all right. So,
Dan?
yes, please.
Dan, perhaps, number one, I think that Mike's suggestion, of your suggestion of not giving up, Mike's suggestion of having a concentrated citizen effort, notwithstanding the frustrations of history, and asking the town council, either through any new committee or just asking the town manager to ask the town council for an opinion, how and to what extent does the town have the right or the ability to seek expansion of the number of commission members so that the end balance is 5 and 4? So it may be the amendment of some charter, maybe it may have to go to the land court for a determination of what the handshake meant then and what it means now. But I'd say, let's not let it die, and I am convinced that we should not abandon the 2 seats, and that we should go forward to make it 4 and 5 seats. Seems to me ultimately fair.
Thank you. Rodney, can we start doing some investigating
Absolutely.
with town council and maybe reaching out to Mayor Cahill's office to take the temperature of us getting additional seats?
Yeah, because that would change it, if,
Well,
instead
it
of
would
2.
help. It would help.
That would help
And
a
then we'll
lot.
keep Mike's idea alive as well.
It may be, my idea modified would be to still have our own commission and save the 2
Okay.
seats, as well as try
So
to see.
don't give up the 2 seats.
Don't give up the seats, create our own commission, and then try to see if there's any other seats available.
All right, so this is a good conversation, but I think the consensus is to keep the 2 seats. Okay. Thank you. Thank you all for the discussion. Okay. The public hearing will be held on the vote by mail for the May 6, 2025 annual town election, and the town clerk will request votes by the board regarding 2025 elections. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. At the board's last meeting, I provided you with a draft of the dates for the important dates for the May 6th annual town election. So at tonight's meeting, I invited the registrar of voters, and they're all here tonight. Marilyn Hazel, Wally Tybert, and Mark Lentini are here tonight. I just first want to thank them for all their work last year during a very busy election, and my office couldn't have done it without them and all of the support that they gave us. So thank you. What we need to go over for tonight is the registrars are in agreement that we should recommend that the board affirm vote by mail for the annual town election on May 6th. In 2024, we allowed vote by mail for the local election, and our registrars are in agreement that once we move in that direction, we should stay with it, and now vote by mail really should be every year. And then the other piece, in addition to the vote by mail, the registrars are in agreement that we should hold 1 day of in-person early voting for the May election. We are recommending Saturday, April 26th, which is also the last day to register to vote, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. here in the Toomey Room. And then I just have a couple of other housekeeping items, but we would like the motions for vote by mail and in-person early vote.
Thank you. Questions? D?
No questions. I support it. The more we can expand voting opportunity, the better. So I'll be in favor of the clerk recommendation.
Thank you. Maureen?
If the registrars want us to do that, I have every confidence in them that we should.
Thank you. Mike? Questions?
No questions. It's obviously pretty handy to have that, so I think it's a good thing.
David?
I agree, as recommended.
Thank you. Can we have a motion on vote by mail, please?
Public hearing.
Oh,
we could
it's
take-
a public, you're right, I circled that.
Thank you.
Sorry. Anyone in the public with questions or comments? Hearing none, Paul, please.
I don't even want to go up there.
No choice.
So Paul Pollack, Precinct 4, 60 Summer Street. We will receive a vote by mail ballot sent out through the state.
May I?
Yes, please.
For the local election, the vote by mail cards that the state sent out will not be mailed out by the state for our local election. So applications for vote by mail, we would make those available online in our office. They can be done online through the state. You can do an online request for vote by mail, but we need a request from each voter that they want the ballot. But there will not be, the state will not be sending out cards for this election.
So we would make a request for, and would that be online? Is that how you're going to do it?
You can do it online.
Or we can come down here?
You can come down and see us in the office.
Yeah.
Or you can print an application on the website. We haven't put that information out on the website yet until after tonight, when the board, finalizes what they want to do.
Okay.
Once they do that, we'll update the important information sheet that we put out every year, and then we'll add some information and post the actual application.
Thank you.
So the point is, the state will not mail out for local elections.
That's basically what my
Right. We
original
have to-
question was,
we
yeah.
have to
You have to
request
take the initiative yourself to do it.
Right.
Okay, as long as it's available, then.
It is.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions? Motion to close the public hearing, please.
Make a motion to close public hearing?
Is there a second?
Second.
Take the roll, please.
Joko,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Bean,
Yes.
Mills,
Yes.
5-0 to close.
All right, can I have a motion to affirm to allow vote by mail for May 6th?
I'll make a motion to affirm to allow vote by mail for the May 6, 2025 annual town election.
Is there a second?
Second.
Take the roll, please.
Joko,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Bean,
Yes.
Mills,
Yes.
5-0. And on the in-person early voting, to that motion, if someone could just add in the Toomey Room at Town Hall.
I'll make the motion to hold a one-day in the Toomey Room of in-person early voting to be held on Saturday, April 26, 2025, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Is there a second?
Second.
Take the roll, please.
Joko,
Yes?
Bernard,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes?
Bean,
Yes.
Mills.
Yes.
5-0.
Okay. And we need a motion for the Select Board to delegate the authority to assign police officers.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll, please.
Joko,
Yes?
Bernard,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Bean,
Yes.
Mills.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and a motion to reaffirm the Select Board delegates the authority of the town clerk to appoint poll workers.
So moved.
Second.
Take the roll.
Joko,
Yes?
Bernard,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Bean,
Yes.
Mills.
Yes.
5-0. So we will, our office will update the town's website with the election information. And I think nomination papers, I'll say it again at the next meeting, but nomination papers will be available on Monday, February 3rd. Anybody who's interested can call the office, stop in. We're happy to sit with everybody who is interested in any of the town positions to go over what's involved, talk about nomination papers, and all of that. But the book, to sign the book for nominations would be available on February 3rd.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll take a brief recess before we start the warrant articles. Oh, please take your seats. Come to order, please.
You want my shoe?
Yeah, no. All right. The board will review a draft of the warrant for the special town meeting on February 3rd, 2025. Mr. Henry, are you leading the charge here?
Eventually, but I think Mr. Conley gets the first couple.
Okay.
Sure. We'll start with a couple boring finance-related items. So again, as is custom, we're going to have a special town meeting in February that primarily deals with zoning and bylaw changes, a couple financial housekeeping items as well. We have Aaron Henry, our Director of Land Use Community Services. We also have Brian Zacchelli, our Director of Planning, in the audience as well, to walk through the articles and answer any questions. With that said, we'll start with the perennial first article on a town meeting warrant, and that's unpaid bills. We've identified several from FY24. As is Massachusetts general law, any bill that needs to be paid from a prior year requires town meeting approval in the town of Danvers. So we have a relatively small list here in front of you. And with that, if there's any questions.
Thank you. And what we'll do, members, after the reading of each article, if there's no questions, we'll take a vote. The vote will be either favorable or unfavorable to send it on to FinCom. That'll be the only motion, favorable or unfavorable. Or we can pull it off the warrant itself if we so desire. So just keep that in mind. Are there any questions on Article 1, unpaid bills? Just speak up if you have any, board members. Hearing none, can we have a motion?
Motion to forward is favorable.
Is there a second?
Second.
Take the roll, please.
Joko? Joko?
Yes.
Bernard?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
Bean?
Yes.
Mills? 5-0 favorable.
Thank you. Number 2.
Number 2,
Yes.
Will there be public comment?
If I see a hand go up, I'll look. If I see a hand, yes. I'm not going to ask. I'll look for hands. Thank you. Number 2.
Number 2, again, a perennial annual article, the Transportation Network. This is funding the state collects from rideshare programs such as Uber and Lyft. A portion of that funding is appropriated to the town, in which case we then must appropriate it into use related to transportation. Historically, the town has appropriated that money into the Senior Transportation Fund. So the motion, the article rather tonight would be to recommend appropriation of that $22,288.70, which represents a little over 220,000 rides in the last fiscal year that originated in Danvers. And that fund would go into senior transportation to support that program.
Thank you. Questions, member of the board? Hearing none. In the audience, Bill?
Thank you. Town meeting member Bill Bates from Precinct 4. I wondered if this was a perfect opportunity, board members, for you to consider, instead of doing the whole $22,288.70, would you consider appropriating $12,288.70 to the senior and social services, and then appropriating $10,000 to be used to install signalized crosswalk remote rapid flash beacons at the crosswalk at Maple Street and Burley Ave. And I do note that a lot of this is very appropriate. It's a transportation money. A number of the Uber and Lyft drivers go up to 75 Lindahl Street, which is the recovery center of America. And I think this would be a wonderful way to improve a dangerous crosswalk.
My opinion is we'll have to find another place to get the 10,000. We need this 22,000 in the senior services. The rides, the cost of the buses, we've got 2 buses falling apart. We need to get 2 new vans. It's a very well-used service. And we'll find hopefully someplace else, Bill.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What's the will of the board?
Motion to, yep, motion to move is favorable.
Roll, please.
Joko? Joko? Oh, he's frozen. Look at him.
Go on.
All right. Sorry.
That's all right. Continue.
Bernard,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Bean,
Yes.
Mills.
Put him down as abstained. Next.
Frozen.
And through you, Mr. Chairman, now that they've done the heavy lifting, I'll turn the ball over to Aaron Henry for the remainder of the warrant.
Well, before I jump slides, I'll just say overall, there are 2 general bylaw amendment proposals and 7 zoning bylaw amendment proposals. In the old days, general bylaws were simple majority at town meeting, should they go through, and zoning bylaw amendments were always supermajority. That's not always the case anymore with the zoning amendments, but just as a point of clarity and background, just remember that now some zoning articles do have lesser quanta at town meeting. But I'll dive into the first 2 general bylaw changes, and then Mr. Zakelli can take over for the zoning articles. So the first general bylaw amendment that we're seeking has to do with, the chapter presently does not have a title. Chapter 9B is an excerpt from the state building code regarding periodic inspections. The building code has advanced to newer versions than reflected in our code. So this bylaw amendment is simply to make sure that our zoning, our general bylaw has the same table in it that is in the building code. Today, and you have in your packets and online in the draft warrant, you'll see the red line versus the proposed. Essentially, it goes from about 6 lines to about 15 lines. We've had to add the column to the right, which is our fee structure. Generally speaking, the fees today are $50 for residential, $100 for commercial. We've just applied that methodology to several of the new categories that are required, but it's a pretty straightforward change. There are some textual changes. We added the title periodic inspections, or we're proposing the chapter have a title periodic inspections. And I think there was a capital T in the Commonwealth, which we are proposing to be lowercase because that would not normally be capitalized. So it's just a grammatical, addressing a grammatical error. Otherwise, the bulk of this article is just to make sure that our general bylaw has the same periodic inspection table as the state building code.
Aaron, halfway down in the chat, A and B, what's the difference?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. You asked that question of us earlier this week, so I apologize. It'll be hard to see given the
Well, I'll
small.
read it. They both say special amusement buildings or portions thereof.
Right, and one is an A use, which is an assembly use. One is a B use, which is a business use, and that pertains to the the occupant load of that property. Business uses are considered less than 50 occupants, so 49 occupants or less. It becomes a place of assembly, an A use, if that number's 50 or higher. An example of a special amusement, because that was my follow-up question to the building commissioner, was what's a special amusement building? This would be a place like Laser Quest here in town, or an escape room. We don't presently have an escape room, but that's something that's become very popular around the Commonwealth. Those are spaces that are designed to make you feel like you can't get out, which kind of runs against the safety of access and egress. So those there's a cut there between the 49 and 50 on occupancy.
So why don't you, in the description, say assembly on A and B on, business on B?
Because we were trying to stick with the table as shown in the code, so we didn't want to have to add any notes or caveats to that, because we just wanted our book to look exactly like the state building code, understanding that the professionals that are using this on a day-in, day-out basis would know what that is, and know what the
Well, you're
differentiation.
asking town meeting to vote on it.
Yep.
They're not professionals.
If you wish for us to add a footnote to this table, we can absolutely do that. The theory was
Consider
just.
it, please.
Yep.
Thank you.
We did offer that explanation in the draft. We added that sentence to the draft warrant about why that is stated that way, but if we wanted to make that a footnote, happy to do that if
Whatever you
that
wanna
gets
do.
us favorable action.
Thank you. Maureen, questions or anyone else?
I just had a question, Aaron. I see all the fees They jumped some of them from 50 to 100.
Yep.
I would like to see consistent. I think there's 4 of them that are 50. If we could just put those as 100, that's what I would recommend. Keep it consistent so it's fair across the board.
We are amenable to changing fees. Again, that was not our primary mission here, but if that, again, is the
We're
will of the
maintaining
board.
fees this year.
Okay, that's fine. I just
Thank you.
wanted
Anyone
to
else
be
with
up.
questions? What's the motion?
Motion to accept as it's presented?
No, favorable or unfavorable?
Favorable.
Is there a second?
Second?
Take the roll, please.
Joko,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Bean,
Yes.
Mills.
Yes.
5-0, thank you.
Okay. Number
Okay.
4.
This one, I'm assuming this was going to catch more attention than it probably deserves, but because it has to do with dogs. The impetus for the change is the advent of electronic leashes, and we've been having an increasing difficulty with people using electronic leashes. There's no physical connection between the dog and the handler. We would like to make it clear that that does not satisfy our belief that you need to have your dog under physical restraint, with the certain exceptions that are now included in the text of the bylaw change, such as being inside the dog park, a few other exemptions that are now listed in the proposed amendment. While we were in the bylaw, we thought this was a good time to make some of those other changes regarding exemptions for people with disabilities, around picking up dog waste, around certain requirements that are outlined in the full proposal. But basically, the impetus for this has to do with the electronic leashes. And again, what we're seeing is person A has their dog on an electronic leash. They're over in the field. I show up with my dog, Rosie, which should never be off the leash, but I see that they're off the leash, so I'm letting my dog off the leash. And now we have a bunch of dogs running around, and no one's under physical control. So we kind of wanted to nip this in the bud, as we've seen this kind of coming up more and more often of late.
Questions? All right, what's the will of the board?
Motion to move as favorable.
Favorable. Is there a second?
Second.
Take the roll, please.
Joko,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Bean.
Yes.
Mills.
Yes.
5-0.
Number 5.
And through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to have Brian Zakelli take it over from here.
Welcome, Brian. I know he's been chomping at the bit to get up there.
Thank you very much. There we go. So speaking of dogs. So Article 5 deals with the definition of kennels. The current definition of kennels contained in the zoning bylaw fails to differentiate between different types of kennels, like your own personal kennels, someone who's breeding kennels as a commercial breeder. All those different types of dog ownership is not really mentioned in our current bylaw and our use table. So this amendment ensures consistency within not just the bylaw, but within state law of what a kennel, of the definition of kennel. The real only change here in this part, in this amendment for Article 5, is that to be consistent with state law, a kennel is now defined as 3, so you need a special permit for 4. That will now be increased. You will now need a special permit to have 5 dogs, so you're basically allowed to have 4. That's the proposal. The proposal is that 4 dogs is allowed, whereas now only 3 dogs are allowed by right. You would need to have a special permit to go to the ZBA to have that 4th dog currently. So that is the major policy change associated with this amendment, is that matching the state law of the definition of kennel, that is changing from a special permit for us from 3 dogs to 4. That is all I believe I have for this article.
Questions? Motion, please.
Motion to forward, approve.
favorably. Thank you. A second?
Second.
Take the roll, please.
Joko,
Yes.
Bernard.
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Bean.
Yes.
Mills, 5-0.
Number 6.
We're going to take 6. I was told.
Doesn't
We're
matter.
taking 6 now?
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
Perfect. Okay. Article 6. So this is extending the Tapleyville Overlay District across the rail trail to 141 and 146 Pine Street. So these properties have been used, they were previously industrial. That's what the Tapleyville overlay went on top of, was mostly industrial zone. These specific parcels, 141 and 146, for about 100 years have been heating oil, delivery, storage, landscaping, and personal services. Currently, it is landscaping and personal services. Residents have really expressed the desire for businesses to remain on the lots, but most businesses actually cannot operate outside of a landscaping business and some type of personal services. Personal services is hair salon, nail salon, spa, those types of uses. So because the Tapleyville Overlay District allows more commercial activity than the R1, which it's currently in, it's believed that including these on the sites of this overlay would alleviate the difficulty of the largest concern that we've heard from this is a large-scale multifamily structure on this site. This is the biggest concern that we've heard from the public throughout this throughout the past 2 months, going through the planning board and also in front of the select board. The largest concern by far was the fear of the 50 units, some type of large multifamily. The Tapleyville Overlay District basically addresses that and says that this is supposed to promote more commercial than residential. The complicated part is that right now the landscaping business is being done through a zoning board use variance from many years ago. So that can stay as long as it keeps going. The personal services is a pre-existing non-conforming, meaning that it didn't go through a ZBA process. It was just there before zoning. So where that leaves us is that because it's a pre-existing non-conforming property, under the current zoning right now, through a finding with the ZBA, it could go to a 50 unit. So the big, in one sentence, what does this do to the multifamily unit structure? Under the current situation in the R1, currently on the ground right now, it would need a finding with the ZBA, which is a 3 out of 5 votes. It would just need a finding to do let's call it the 50 unit or 100 unit, whatever megastructure. It would need a finding, a 3 out of 5. If it gets pulled into the Tapleyville Overlay District, it would need a variance from the ZBA in order to get above 14 units per acre, which is pretty low. Your average house lot is at 4 units per acre, so it's low. So the main difference in terms of the biggest concern that we've heard, by far the biggest concern, is a large multifamily. Staff and the planning board believe that no one can predict the future. We cannot say exactly what applicant will come in for anything, and we never will. However, this allows more commercial and requires the zoning board to have a variance for any large multifamily. I think I'm going to stop there.
David, any questions?
No, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes.
Mike?
Brian, I'm going to need you to help me on this.
Of course.
I know you just said it, but you're going to have to talk slow and look right at me. So right now, if the two properties decided to put up 50 apartments on each property, they could get approval by the ZBA? Is that
I'm not saying, it is possible for an application to go before the ZBA, and if the ZBA finds it favorable, they could vote on that, yes.
And with this word change, you're saying that they could only max out at 14 units per acre?
I'm saying that they would max out at 14 units per acre through a special permit with the planning board, But to go over 14 units per acre, they would have to go to the ZBA.
First.
Yes, if they're trying to go over 14, they would have to go, which is currently actually what's happening at, just down the street at 180 to 182. It's in the R1, and they're trying to do an 8-unit in that, where that specifically, because that's not in the Tapleyville, they can only do by right, or sorry, through a special permit, they can do 7. So it just, because it's in the Tapley, it does increase it if you're just straight looking at the R1. The problem, the difference is that in 180 to 182, there's nothing on there. It's vacant. There is no pre-existing, there's no protection, any of that. So that's why that's able to that's why it's so low, because in the R1, normal house lot, it's the max you can do is 7.
Now, in that 180, 182, aren't they permitted to get 5 units without any approval?
Once you hit 4, you're in front of the planning board. So any 4-unit structure in town, anything that's over 4 units is a multifamily structure that needs a special permit from the planning board.
But the maximum on that would be 7.
The maximum, and in the R1, the maximum would be 7 that the planning board could give. In the Tapleyville, it is 14. So the Tapleyville is different from the R1. It just so happens, the reason why we're here is that these have been commercial for 100 years. People want to keep them commercial. This is one way that it at least gives them options to remain commercial, and it expands the amount of commercial uses that they can do. Whereas right now, it's landscaping and personal services.
So with the word changing, do we lose any authority from the planning and/or ZBA? Do we still have the power they have to say no?
Yes, I mean, regardless of anything that happens in town, anything above a four units is a special permit with the planning board, meaning a special permit is a discretionary permit. It can be denied.
But the Pine Street that we're talking about here, at 141 and 146, they have the commercial ability as well.
Well, right now, the only commercial abilities they have are landscaping, because they went through a ZBA process to do that. So they could go through essentially another ZBA process in the future to, change it, but it doesn't make sense. It makes more sense to zone for what you want there. That's the best we can do. We can't, so, yeah. I can't tell you what's going to happen.
I don't think I can ask the question correctly either, because I'm not sure. What I'm getting at is that
No, please
people
continue.
are worried about the overbuilding, especially in that area, Pine Street. There's a lot of residents, as you know, are upset with that. And the 182 project, I mean, the driveway's going to dump right out by Hyde, which is already a tough corner. So what I'm asking is, are we still going to have the curbs up? Does the public still have ability to stop something or slow it down on this Pine Street area that we're talking about?
Of course, all of these are, again, whether we change this tonight, or sorry, whether in February 3rd it gets changed, or whether it doesn't get changed, anything that's over 4 units still is, again, a discretionary permit. The planning board can say no.
So the convenience of this is to try to keep it to 14 units? Is that what this was saying?
This was done long before so the idea of this had nothing to do with 180 and 182. This was in motion months before we even got the application on our desk. It was commercial, commercial, commercial. We weren't even talking. The point of the Tapleyville Overlay District is neighborhood commercial. That's the objective. So we weren't thinking about housing. However, the weird thing about it is because it has this protection, because it's a pre-existing non-conforming use, again, it's a lower bar currently to get the megastructure. If we change this, it will be a higher bar, that period. It's a 3 out of 5 currently to go to the megastructure. If we change this, it would be a 4 out of 5 that you would need to go to the larger because it would be a dimensional variance with the zoning board of appeals.
Okay. All right.
So more discretion,
More discretion. Okay. Thank you.
of course.
Okay, Mike?
Yes, thank you.
Maureen?
She has questions. I want to hear the questions first.
When the board is done.
So I'm confused. So we have those two properties. So what we're saying, they're commercial properties. Can anybody come back and say, well, we want to take the commercial, we want to put commercial on the bottom and have apartments up above?
Yeah, they
That
could
it-
do that now, though.
They can do that
They could
now.
do that easier now.
Easier now. So by us voting favorable, it makes it harder for them to do something like that?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Because it's a very dense area. You've got Tapley Park, you know, a lot of kids and everything too.
So I can't tell you how boards are going to vote.
Yep.
I can't tell you what application is going to come in.
Right.
But the drumbeat that I'm going to keep saying is that currently it's to do a large mixed use structure, you would need 3 votes out of 5 with the zoning board of appeals to do the large right now. Currently, under the current R1 zoning and the pre-existing non-conforming uses that are on the property right now, because of this unique thing that's on these properties, these commercials that have been here for 100 years. That is very unique in the R1. So, because of this unique pre-existing non-conforming situation, they can go to this easy bar. They can go from one non-conforming use, which is where they are now, to a different non-conforming use through a finding with the ZBA, a 3 out of 5. If we put these into the Tapleyville overlay district, to do anything over 14 units per acre, which that's a very low bar for a large multifamily. That's not a very large, that's not very large. You would need a 4 out of 5. So there's no doubt it's a harder bar to get the larger structure through this change. It was not the intention at all when we started this, but everyone, I think because of 180 and 182, it was like changes happening. What is this? How is this going to affect me? All legitimate questions. It's taken a while for me to sit people, and I've sit with several people from Pine Street, including this week. And the hope that at the end is that we cannot predict the future. We can set up the zoning and see what happens. That is honestly the best. And you know, we've done that downtown. We're from here on out, we're hopefully only going to be making small tweaks in the future. We're not trying to change neighborhoods. We're really just trying to do things that make sense. It's been commercial for 100. We're trying to kind of maybe keep it going.
So this is better for the residents now, the way it is.
I would never use the word better.
Better, I know,
ever.
that's kind of hard.
But I would say the largest concern
Yeah.
is the very large multifamily. This provides you need 4 votes to get it
of 3.
instead of 3.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Everybody else on the board all set? Okay, in the audience? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joanne Magucci, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 2. I'm here this evening as I've heard from a lot of residents in Precinct 2 on their concerns about 141 and 146 Pine Street being brought into the Tapleyville overlay. I can definitely... I've sat with Brian. He has been very generous with his time, with myself and with other residents to explain this. It is a little complicated, and I think the feedback from the residents that I've heard, and also I have some fellow town meeting members I've heard back from. I've reached out to them. They also have concerns. One of them is, what's the rush? Let's slow this down a little bit and look at it a little bit more. So the neighborhood wants to move very cautiously on the concept of adding these 2 properties to the overlay. I think where people are now is they just feel they're choosing the lesser of 2 evils on what they agree with. As to, road have a little bit more of a roadblock to a larger scale development. That doesn't leave a lot of people comfortable, including myself. More information is needed in order to make the best informed decision as to what is best for the neighborhood. This area of Holton and Pine Streets is very busy with vehicle and pedestrian traffic. It is a cut-through for the Liberty Tree Mall. We have, McKinnon's Market there. We have a gas station on the next corner. We have Daniela's Restaurant, which is very busy, especially at night. I was coming here this evening, and I'll give you a prime example. This is around the corner, basically, from my house. People are trying to get into McKinnon's. People are trying to get in and out of Daniela's. I almost got hit head on by someone going around. So that's how bad the traffic is there at night. It's a cut-through for Liberty Tree Mall, as I said. There's a baseball field, so in the summertime, there's a lot of children running around. There's a crossing right there from the rail trail, and there's very close abutting neighbors. The area, Precinct 2, is, I think, the second densest, Brian had told me, the second densest precinct in the town. The neighborhood, at this point, while requesting additional information, we are requesting a traffic study to be done of the Tapleyville overlay and the surrounding neighborhood, a parking study, and also a study on the impact of increased density before 141 and 146 Pine Street are added to the Tapleyville overlay. This information is needed in order for the residents to make a much better informed decision on how they feel about this inclusion. Also, we would like the town to provide any information about any upcoming new developments that are currently in the pipeline for the Tapleyville Overlay District, including, I have heard some rumblings that the property on the corner of Pine and Holton Street has just sold. The red building with Pizza Place and the taller building next to it. I'm not sure, has that been sold? So I'm just confirming it has been sold. So there are concerns there, what is going to happen with that property and the impacts of traffic and other things on the neighborhood.
So if I may interject.
Yes.
Your request would be for this to be tabled?
That was my next sentence, Mr.
Well,
Chairman.
I just want to move along.
Yes, that was my next sentence. So with all these concerns, we respectfully ask that the Select Board remove Article 6 from the warrant at this time.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Warren?
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
Apologies. I got disconnected earlier. I listened to all the other board members' comment except David. I had a few questions about this. I could do it after others have spoken, but just wanted to let you know.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So my first question, I heard a few numbers, 14 and 4, and I just want to understand. So two things, 141, 146, does that mean that each of those parcels have a maximum of 14, which is 28, or is it 14 for the two combined?
Brian?
So it's a density. It's a 14 units per acre. So it's based on acreage. It's not based on like two
How many
sites.
acres?
20.
How many acres on the total parcel?
So how many acres would this be?
I am sorry, but I do not have that this very second. I will get it.
Okay. So if we were to approve, now another question that I had was, what actually triggered the need for this change? And how does that benefit either the town or the neighborhood?
Sure. This change, there was some, my office also handles business certificates. So we review business certificates for zoning compliance. So when somebody applies for a business certificate to run a business in town, we do a quick check just to make sure that this use is allowed. And we were finding there was one particular that both these properties that there are not 146 but 141 over the past several years there was a lot of business certificate activity trying to get different businesses in there that were just not allowed. Then when we started looking into the zoning history, this was just like a small 1 hour weird pet project of what's actually happening here. Then we looked into it, and it was just, this is in the R1. It's been commercial for 100 years, and there's this all long history of commercial for 100 years. You don't need a lot of time to know if it's been a commercial for 100 years, and there hasn't been a lot of problems essentially associated with people saying we don't want that. Then you try to zone for what's there, what's on the ground, and that's how it started. Then other applications kind of started rolling in around Pine Street, and it brought a lot of attention to this. And all of a sudden, it's like, whoa, we want to slow down? Sure. We have no problem slowing down, first of all. But I hope that gave you the history that you were looking for.
I got the parcels.
Yes, thank you.
The parcels 146, which is Chet's Lock Shop, is 1.0 acres, and 141 is 1.1.
So not extremely. No, that can't be right.
Sorry, I just
Actually, no. 140. Yeah, 141 is.
I think I just looked.
It's a triangle.
Yeah. 141 is 1.1 acres. So these are not able to get over an extremely large thing without a special permit or variance. So these are not like 10.
Okay, so if so if we were to approve this without a special permit or variance, they allow 4 units per each of these parcels. Is that correct?
That is correct. So they still need a special permit with the planning board to do anything more than 4 units per acre.
Okay.
Now and later on as well. That doesn't matter. Anything over 4.
Perfect. And if we approve it, they can do up to 14 per acres with the special permit. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you. I attended a few zoning board meetings, and the resident didn't seem to be in favor of this change at the moment. It's true that the standard to do another non-conforming use and have 50 units is very low, which is 3 out of 5 instead of 4 out of 5. But I still think that it might be wise to rethink this before we make the change, because we don't know what kind of businesses is true. Now we only have maybe a couple type of businesses, but by opening it up, we're opening it up to more opportunities. We could generate more traffic that we'll be unable to control. So I'm leaning more toward holding off on this at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Warren?
Hi, Lauren Steves, Hood Terrace. I guess my only comment on this is if you guys approve for it to go forward to FinCom, there's obviously a lot of confusion in this room as it is. What's this, what's that? I have no idea if there's a way to clarify this before this, if it goes before town meeting, because I imagine that there's going to be even more confusion in that room if this goes forward with the way it's explained and worded, would be my only concern.
Thank you. In the corner here.
Thank you.
John Bouchard, Crestline Circle. Just to give you a little history, we went through this before in February of 2020 when John Thompson had an agreement with Prentice Family Trust to build a 29-unit apartment building on that site. The entire neighborhood, again, objected to it because of the traffic, because of the lights from the ball field. Eventually, John Thompson, the deal fell apart, and that went away. But my fear is that this is now just going to come back again. The Prentice family want to sell that land, and then this was the way to do it. My fear is now you're going to open up the Chet's locksmith area, which has never been open before, but now they could possibly develop that as well. So my fear is you're going to see a strip mall with apartments on top of it, and possibly the same thing on the other side of the street. So my recommendation is to say no to this for right now.
Thank you. Michael?
Hi, Mike Trainer, town meeting member, Precinct 5. I just really want to echo what Joanne, she's had a lot of meetings with the neighborhood. I've attended several of them. This kind of came up with the neighbors in December, and the feeling is definitely, and this is a very large scale, she has a whole group going, they're not ready to make a decision on this yet. We've heard both sides. She asked you to remove it from the article from the warrant, and I just want to say that's definitely what the neighbors want at this point, and we'll just review it in the future when we have more information.
Thank you. Anybody with something different, new?
Nova Samade, town meeting member, Precinct 1. I'm not sure, so from what I've gathered from the planning board meetings going over this is that this is really just so that more businesses can stay and they won't develop it into residential. So if we don't pass this, we don't get that benefit. So then that is a bigger push to make it residential and make it from one non-conforming to another. So I'm not sure what more information is needed to make a decision whether or not to do this. That's just my only comment.
Thank you. Anyone else? What's the will of the board?
Can I make a motion that we,
You can make a motion.
that we take this out for now so that the residents can gather more information?
Is there a second?
Does that mean table it, right? We're going to
Table.
Remove it
Yep.
from the warrant.
I agree, second.
Take the roll, please.
Joko,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Bennett,
Abstain.
Bean,
Yes.
Mills. That's 4-0-1 to remove the article.
Remove the article. Okay, Brian?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, next, number 7,
I can hear it,
garages.
It was kind of funny, by the way, how this like little like hour-long project, and we're like, oh, this makes sense, to like, whoa. So, on to Article 7. Not nearly as cool. So, but garages. So, the current definition of a garage only refers to garages on residential properties. This obviously makes no sense because there's many commercially operated garages all over town. So one, fixing that definition to include residential and non-residential garages in the definition makes sense. And we would just allow the table of uses to allow commercial and industrial districts by special permit via the planning board. So that's just allowing, since we added a commercial or industrial garage, we added that definition. Because we added that definition, we had to put it into the use table. And then we said where that's going to be allowed, and you still need a special permit with the planning board to have a commercial or industrial garage. So adding a new definition and then putting it in the use table.
Questions? Audience? What's the will of the board?
Motion to forward with approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Take the roll, please.
Joko,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Bean,
Yes.
Mills. 5-0 favorable.
Thank you. 8,
Article 8, floodplain bylaw. So this is an update to our existing floodplain bylaw that in order to adhere to new FEMA regulations, This specific version that is in the warrant has been reviewed and approved by FEMA, and it's required for landowners to receive flood insurance. Because of the review process, it was determined by FEMA that there were a decent amount of there was too much that was unrelated into our current bylaw, so they deleted and replaced the entire section. They felt that this was a much better approach rather than doing a full red line version. We obviously have both of those versions for you to look at, but this is a clean and replace with that is specific to Danvers that has, again, already been reviewed and approved by FEMA. No changes to the development standards. Those are still referencing 310 CMR, which is our DP regulations for any development in the floodplain. Back to you.
Explain, still awaiting the exact date of the new map.
So they have said by mid-January, which is next week, that the actual date for that we are going to update. So all the regs were updated, but then the map that they're referencing, we don't have that date yet. We're supposed to be getting that date mid-January, again, next week. If for some reason we don't have that by February 3rd, they're the ones enforcing, like telling us that we need to do it this year in 2025. So if they're the ones that are not holding it to us, I don't, kind of like, go for it. Like, so, we're just trying to adhere to the regulations that they are giving us. And they're very full aware of our special town meeting, that it's in February, and that we still, we are still supposed to be doing it this year.
Do you see any problems if they don't give us a date and we go to town meeting?
I think if we don't have the date from FEMA, again, they've given us a deadline that we have to adopt this. If they don't give us the date, we'd have to defer the article until a future town meeting.
Probably May.
I mean, again, they.
Well, I'm just thinking of.
Yeah, it'd probably be deferred to May.
Okay, thank you. Questions, members? Audience?
Just one,
Yep.
please. Does this force somebody to buy extra insurance if they don't need it? Could somebody be placed in a flood area and it would be?
I'm sure that's happened.
I don't believe that the dimensions of any of the flood districts that we have today are changing. There is a process by which a homeowner who finds themselves in a floodplain that thinks that that data is wrong can appeal to FEMA to get themselves removed. I'm not going to lie to you, that's not a fun process. I've dealt with that with a few homeowners in a previous post. But there is that possibility. But all that's happening here is FEMA is getting better data within the floodplain. So it's essentially the elevation of the floodplain that's changing, but not the dimensions of the floodways.
So would the town be coming after a resident for a lack of enough flood insurance with this change?
No,
No,
we have no.
Okay.
The only time we get involved would be, I want to build a garage and I'm in a floodway, and you're probably triggering Concom process anyway. There are some addition, like the slide shows, you have to comply with the building code and 310 CMR, but that's the rule today.
Thank you.
All set?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, what's the will of the board?
Move the application as favorable.
Is there a second?
Second.
Take the roll, please. Running out of paper.
I got another page.
Oh, you got another, oh.
See that? Thought that through. Joko,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Bean.
Yes.
Mills. 5-0 favorable.
Number 9.
So Article 9, Article 8 was FEMA, federal. Article 9 is Groundwater Protection District, state, or Commonwealth. So we currently have 2 groundwater protection areas that consist of aquifers and recharge areas that warrant protection in the southwest and in the northeast. We are updating the bylaw to reflect the new maps that are issued by the Commonwealth. And what's happening is the northeast, there was a well that was fed by Hamilton, Wenham. Is no longer active, so it therefore is no longer part of the groundwater protection district according to the Commonwealth. So then what we just have is the southwest portion, wrong way. So we just now have this southwest portion, so all we're doing is updating the map to correspond with the new data. That's it, Dan.
So I'm looking at two different sizes. Is it the same area? Just the bottom map is enlarged, but
Correct.
the area is the same?
Correct.
As shown on the previous. Okay,
I
thank
don't
you.
know why it's not. Hold on. Here. Yeah, so it is this. It's the same. The southwest
Okay.
one is not changing. It was just a close up. But yeah, the southwest one is not changing at all. We're just deleting, or the
Deleting,
state,
okay.
the state deleted the
I got
north
it.
one.
Thank you. Questions? Audience, yes, sir.
John Bouchard, Crestline Circle. I just have a question. That top one that you're removing it from the groundwater protection. Who owns that land?
Those properties, Mr. Connors owns a great deal of those properties, as does the town.
So that means that now that there's no groundwater protection required, that can now become developed, he can develop all that property. Under today's rules, he can't develop the property because it's protected by the groundwater requirement. No?
No.
That's not the case.
No. The groundwater protection district at the state level is similar to the floodplain bylaws, where it says if you're going to do development in this area, there are additional standards that development must meet. It largely pertains to what I call heavy industry, like, you can't have a junkyard because cars drip fuel, so you couldn't do that in that district. Uses like that, heavy uses that have some sort of environmental impact. I'm not saying Mr. Connors there's other protections on his property, so I'm going to give a hypothetical that is purely hypothetical, but if he wanted to do a subdivision, you could still do a subdivision in the groundwater protection district. There are just some additional standards that he would have to meet. But it does not prohibit development in the groundwater protection district.
Yeah. And just one other question. Wouldn't it help us long range with the water problems that we have to maintain this well that's not being currently used? At some point, could that well be used again?
My fear, to that question, my fear is that the state is saying you don't need this anymore, and if we maintain it and then obstruct somebody's property rights based on it, are we at risk in that scenario? Where we told you can't do it, but the state's saying you absolutely can do this. So I think out of an abundance of caution, we feel at the staff level that it is imperative that we be in lockstep with these state rules.
The state is saying you don't need it, but we know different. We have a water problem, and wouldn't we want to protect that? That's just my thought. I mean, why would we
Excuse me,
take a
Aaron, how
chance
would
that we
this help our
eliminate
water
that?
problem?
What?
I'm not sure how this would impact the water problem. This is about, I don't know how this would impact the
How
water
far
problem.
is that from our reservoir?
Oh, several miles.
Right.
The southwest corner, we have 2 wells. I think
Right.
only one's operating right now. And then the rest of our wells are in Middleton. Like I said, this one, I think, was a well that was shut down in Wenham. And again, this doesn't have to do with water withdrawal. This is land uses that might seep into groundwater. Yeah.
Thank you. What's the will of the board?
I move that we forward with recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Take the roll, please.
That was for favorable?
Favorable.
Thank you. Joko?
Yes.
Bernard?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
Bean?
Yes.
Mills? 5-0 favorable.
Signed bylaw. I don't think I've ever seen so much paper on a bylaw as this signage. Go right ahead, please, Brian.
I love signage. Signage and parking that's why I became a planner, by the way. Signage and parking. Okay, Article 10. So this seeks to reduce the number of sections containing signage rules down to 1. We had a whole, the bulk of this proposal brings actually standard from the regulations that are outside of the zoning, that are in the planning board's regulations. We're taking them out of the regulations and we're putting them all in one place in the zoning bylaw. So we are not referencing, so if there's anything to do with signage, you just go to one place for everything. Actually, I'll stop there.
Okay, questions? Audience, what's the will of the board?
Move the application as presented to favorable.
Is there a second?
Second.
Take the roll, please.
Joko,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mills. Yes. 5-0 favorable.
Number 11.
11, outdoor lighting. This was kind of a weird one. I'll start at the why we're here is that I've been here for 2 years. Within my first year here, we kept getting a number of complaints about from residential properties about commercial property lighting. It wasn't like once a month, but it was more often than, and the answer was there's nothing in our zoning bylaw to talk about this. So that was the impetus for it. So basically, unless you're already in front of a planning board or zoning board for some other type of process, there's nothing to point to even say, direct a light more downward rather than it spilling over into your property. As simple as that is. So we reviewed various of these model bylaws around. We had given a very extremely large one to the planning board. They hated it. They said that this is way too complicated. Went basically down from 30 to about 7 pages. So that's the version that's in the warrant right now. It has been reviewed by the electric division. There is a lot of there's actually there's a lot of math involved with a lot of these outdoor lighting bylaws. It's not simply just trespass. So they had a chance to comment as well. We did not have too many concerns from residents or business owners about this bylaw yet. Throughout the public process, we did not hear much about this one. And that is all I have.
Questions? Mike?
Who is going to go out and check this light situation?
So on Thursdays in the evenings, a lot of the time it's my department who does this. So it kind of depends. We haven't figured that out yet, is the truth. Because it's in the zoning bylaw, I am the zoning enforcement officer, so I guess I'll say it's me.
And so that leaves still a big area.
No, I mean,
what if my floodlight goes here, but the neighbor hates it, and how do what if you say it's okay, but the neighbor's still upset? Where do we go?
BB guns.
If it actually goes there, I'll make some type of determination of some kind. My guess is that one person will be very happy and another won't be. The hope is that that's not, but the worst case scenario, that's what it is. Someone's very upset. They would then have the ability to take my decision to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So then, which is true for any decision that any zoning enforcement officer makes in the Commonwealth. If there's a decision that residents or anyone else feel aggrieved by it or somehow made the wrong call, you basically file an appeal about a ruling that the ZEO had made, and you're in front of the ZBA just like any other applicant.
And is there a fine involved in this?
Typically, fines for zoning infractions or like zoning board infraction, things that are related to a decision, are at most $300 per day per infraction. So that's a max.
All right. Hope we don't get to that. All right, thank you.
We try not. That is a last resort. I think we've actually only fined one entity since I've been here in 2 years, but we have threatened many.
Was it a commercial situation?
That was a commercial situation, and they paid.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Audience? What's the will of the board?
Move forward favorable?
Is there a second?
Second.
Take the roll, please.
DeJoko?
Yes.
Bernard?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
Bean?
Yes.
Mills? 5-0 favorable.
All right. That takes care of the warrant. Thank you all. The board will vote to close the warrant on Wednesday, January 8th at 4 p.m. Is there a motion?
Motion to close the warrant on Wednesday, January 8th
At 4 p.m.
at 4 p.m., please.
Is there a second?
Second.
Take the roll, please.
Joko?
Yes.
Bernard?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
Bean?
Yes.
Mills?
Yes.
5-0 to close, 4 p.m. tomorrow.
Thank you.
Dan,
Yes.
may I make a comment about the work product of Aaron and Brian?
Oh, please do.
You people in the room, there's stuff about zoning. I did it for 50 years. That's why I look like this and walk with a cane. The presentations tonight on pre-existing non-conforming use and overlay districts and all, you know, I think that our Brian and Aaron have done a superb job under the circumstances trying to explain the intricacies of zoning. And it's hard stuff. And sometimes I wish that there could be a workshop. It would have to cover 10 nights and 3 hours a night to try to begin to understand the concepts and the balancing that has to go in between the fundamental right, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that constitutional right of the landowner to use her land, his land, in accordance with what the law is, and balancing against the interests of other people who have to live next door. And so I just want to say, I watched them, and I may not be here forever to say it next year. Job well done, and thank you all for listening. I've watched how carefully you've listened to them. And Dan, if I'm on the subject, no, I'll wait till final comments on the town engineer. That's another gold star for tonight. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Dan.
Aaron, Brian, thank you for coming tonight. We'll see you again, I'm sure. All right. I mean, on this. The town manager will report to the board. Ronnie, do we have a date for FinCom?
FinCom is January 16th at 7 p.m.? Yes. Is it on our agenda? Thursday, January 16th at 7 p.m. in the Toomey hearing room.
16th at 7.
Yep.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Just one update. Apologies if I'm stealing this from one of your closing comments, but Danvers will be hosting the 26th annual Martin Luther King Jr. Tribute, Moving Like King. That'll take place on January 20th, 2025, from 4 to 6 p.m. in the Danvers High School atrium. Danvers resident Mark Anthony Hunter will share his reflections on MLK, as well as the challenges and opportunities for us within his legacy today. The event's free, open to the public, and we look forward to seeing you there.
See you then. Anything else? That's it?
That's all.
Oh, short and sweet, thank you. All right. Closing comments. D, you want to say anything so you can go to bed? It's 6 hour difference.
It's only 2:50 a.m. local time here. So, but I got some coffee. So, thank you. Happy New Year's to everyone, and I just want to thank my fellow Danvers residents for putting their trust in me in 2024. It was a great year, and I'm looking forward to working along everyone for 2025 to accomplish great things and make more progress and make our community a great community. So thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a motion on the consent calendar, please?
Motion.
Yep. David and Maureen second. Take the roll, please.
Joko, Joko.
Yes.
Bernard.
Now you can go.
Bennett.
Yes.
Bean.
Yes.
Mills. 5-0 approved consent. Thank you.
Okay, Maureen.
All right, closing comments. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. We like to hear and see people here at the meetings. A couple of things. Danvers Public Schools is having a strategic planning meeting tomorrow night.
Thursday.
I'm sorry, Thursday. Yeah.
6:30?
6 to 7:30.
6 o'clock.
Yep, 6 to
o'clock.
7:30 p.m. at the high school cafeteria. All are welcome to come. And I also wanted to, on a sad note, say that Francis Ryan passed away recently. He lives in Danvers at the age of 89, had 5 daughters that went through the Danvers school systems. Frank was a former firefighter in Brooklyn. He was actually instrumental in starting the fire science program at North Shore Community College. So my condolences to Frank's family for the loss. That's it.
Thank you. Mike?
Just want to say Happy New Year, happy, healthy New Year to everybody, and I hope we have a great year. Thank you.
David?
Thank you, Dan. I just wanted to commiserate with everybody else in town. Microphone, please. Oh. No, you're the only one that wanted to listen. The National Grid has been ripping up the streets in Danvers now. It's got to be for a year. And it probably has to do with the gas explosion in Lawrence 5 years ago. Their insurers probably said, you've got to replace every line in Massachusetts that's older than, I don't know what the thing is. I know this, that the enormous pressure on our engineering department to supervise that work, to make it done right, to make sure that the leveling of the road is done according to specs, which it never is, and having to chase around those independent contractors who I think were probably hired, without any credentials, that whoever they could get to run a bulldozer. So I just want to say our town engineer and his staff have done a wonderful job of trying to keep all of that mess under control. Thank you.
Thank you. Rodney, is the possession statement online?
I don't believe it's on the town website, but we can get that up tomorrow morning.
The company doing the recruitment has put together a position statement, and Rodney will see that it goes online so people can read it, and this will be sent out to interested parties interested in applying for the town manager job, and in my opinion, it was well done. But go online in a day or two and take a look at it. Happy New Year to Danvers, and look forward to seeing you on Martin Luther King Day. And if you see a veteran, please say thank you for their service, and good night, Danvers.
Good night.